The year was 1910. The Selig Polyscope Company released a filmed adaptation of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, along with 3 other films based upon L. Frank Baum's children's books. The 4 shorts were created in the aftermath of Baum's loss of rights stemming from his failed Fairy-Log and radio plays venture, which involved not only film, but live actors and hand-tinted magic lantern slides. Also in 1910, L. Frank Baum moved his family to Los Angeles. In the up-and-coming neighborhood of Hollywood, he built Ozcom, the house in which he would spend the rest of his life. And elsewhere in Hollywood, the Biograph Company lensed in Old California, the very first film shot in what would soon become the movie capital of the world. The town of Hollywood in the early teens existed as an idyllic community, a lazy suburb to the already bustling urban life of downtown Los Angeles. Southern California appealed not only to transplants such as Baum, but also early movie producers, with its diverse landscape and stunning weather, allowing for greater flexibility filming than back east. The motion picture industry grew rapidly. Perhaps most importantly, the distance provided by Los Angeles gave producers freedom from the Edison Trust in New Jersey, which maintained an iron fist monopoly on all filmmaking activities, litigiously enforcing its patents. The local media soon took notice of the region's newfound filming importance and began covering it regularly. The first kept on coming. In 1911, the Nestor Film Company opened the first movie studio located in Hollywood proper, at the Blondeau Tavern building at Sunset and Gower. Shortly thereafter, in early 1912, Nestor would produce the first film known to have been shot in Hollywood by a Hollywood studio, for Indian Hero. For Hollywood studios, that was just the beginning. 2 years later, in February 1914, the Jesse L. Lasky Feature Play Company released The Squaw Man, the first feature film produced in Hollywood. Little did people realize that the course of movie making had changed forever. Except perhaps for L. Frank Baum. 2 months after The Squaw Man was released, Baum announced the formation of the Oz Film Manufacturing Company to produce feature films based upon his books. This venture, while ultimately unsuccessful, would prove to be one of the most innovative production companies of its time. That Baum, with his lifelong love of acting on the stage, would be drawn to the nascent film industry springing up around him was all but inevitable. As a young man, Baum had been an actor, writing and starring in a play entitled The Maid of Erin under the name Louis F. Baum. Later, the 1902 musical extravaganza based on The Wizard of Oz was a massive success, running for 293 performances on Broadway and making stars of David Montgomery and Fred Stone as the Tin Woodman and the Scarecrow. In just the previous year, The Tick-Tock Man of Oz, Baum's latest musical with songs by Louis Gottschalk, had premiered at the Majestic Theater in Los Angeles, subsequently touring for the better part of a year. Notable in the Oz Film Manufacturing Company's announcement was the statement that the company would exclusively produce feature films. Coming at a time when the vast majority of movie producers still only made 1 or 2 reel shorts, such a bold decision was notably prescient of the direction in which the industry was headed. Having learned his lesson from the financial disaster of the Fairy-Logs, Baum put up none of his own money for the new company. Instead, he raised $100,000 in capital from the membership of the Uplifters, a social group at the Los Angeles Athletic Club, of which Baum took part. Baum's own contribution consisted of signing over the film rights to his books. Baum was installed as the first president of the Oz Film Manufacturing Company, alongside fellow uplifters Louis F. Gottschalk as vice president, Harry Marston Haldeman as secretary, and Clarence R. Rundle as treasurer. The Oz Film Company spent lavishly on a state-of-the-art studio at a time when most facilities were still quite minimal. This new lot was located in Hollywood on Santa Monica Boulevard, between Gower and Lodi Streets. According to Moving Picture World, the plight is to be one of the best on this coast, and no pains or money are being spared in an effort to make it the best, later calling it a fun new studio. with grounds that are 1 block long and a half block deep and one of the most down to the minute. In its July 4th, 1914 issue, Moving Picture World even dedicated an entire article to the new studio lot, highlighting its fine dressing rooms, the enormous stage which included a 7-foot deep trap, the original diffusing system, and its overall picturesqueness. A future article added that Baum has installed a complete plant for making costumes, says the wearing apparel for Oz films is so unique and quaint, no local customer keeps anything like what is used in these films. Although it should be noted that contemporary advertisements for Goldstein customers prove at least some of the wardrobe was made elsewhere. Regardless, if the hype is to be believed, the Oz plant was one of the premier studios on the West Coast. The company's aspirations extended beyond just the production of movies to their exhibition as well. The June 1914 article in Motion Picture News announced the Oz Film Company's plan to build 5 children's theaters in Los Angeles, much as Baum had once planned to build a theatrical stage in New York. Alas, these theaters never came into being. The Oz Film Manufacturing Company's first feature, The Patrick Girl of Oz, entered principal photography on June 15, 1914. From the very beginning, the Oz Film Company had touted that all of its pictures would include full scores, and indeed, The Patrick Girl of Oz would feature the first ever custom-written full-length motion picture score, composed, apparently on set, by Baum's TikTok Man of Oz collaborator and company vice president Louis Gottschalk. On July 18, Moving Picture World would report, the other day the Oz Company did some big exteriors in a forest, and Louis Gottschalk, who composes music as the film is made, had his piano moved out into the wood and played with the camera turning near him. There were 30 dancing girls who kept time to the music. There was a large castle, rocks, and other props used in the real forest scene. This is a part of the first production of the fairy tale. This article also indicates that despite the lavish studio facilities, the Oz Film Company shot many exterior scenes for the Patrick Girl of Oz on location. Indeed, a sizable percentage of exteriors for all of the company's features were shot off-lot, with the rolling road scenes of the Magic Cloak of Oz likely shot in the hills of nearby Griffith Park, and Motion Picture News even reporting the fact that scenes from The Last Egyptian were filmed on the bank of Balboa Bay, southwest of Los Angeles. Although the full schedule and list of locations is unknown, it is clear that photography on The Patrick Girl was completed by July 18th. Immediately, the company entered production on its second film, The Magic Cloak of Oz, even while editing continued on The Patrick Girl. Post-production finished a mere 2.5 weeks later. After a test run of some of the film in late July, and at least one full screening of the movie August 1st for buyers, exchange owners, and the press totaling some 300 viewers, The Patrick Girl of Oz premiered August 6th at the Los Angeles Athletic Club to an enthusiastic crowd of 3,500 people. Moving Picture World wrote about the premiere. There were many hundred members present who saw the beautiful film, and if their opinions coincide with those of the exhibitors, this film company has certainly struck no slippery rocks in the river of prosperity, for their films are good. If the premiere crowd indeed loved the movie as much as publicity would have them believe, no small measure was due to the Georges Méliès-inspired special effects. From stop-motion animation allowing a room to repair itself, rotated cameras letting people walk first up and later down the wall, optical effects permitting characters to pass through the wall of illusion, and even transforming them. Baum utilized every piece of trickery in the early special effects arsenal to film Oz magic. With costume scenes and special effects all apparently impressing the first audience, and with these films similar to The Patrick Girl currently in the marketplace, expectations were understandably high at the Oz Film Company when the ever-looming specter of the Edison Trust suddenly struck from across the country. In August 1914, the Motion Pictures Patent Company charged the Oz Film Manufacturing Company and 4 other production entities in infringement lawsuits over the use of illegal cameras. Baum and his partners immediately embarked on extensive negotiations with the trust, eventually settling the suit out of court. Baum's eldest son, Frank Jocelyn Baum, traveled to New York in September for the purpose of screening the film to distributors. Once there, he would open a New York office of the Oz Film Company in the recently constructed Candler Building at 220 West 42nd Street. Any distributor hesitation that may have existed prior to Frank Jocelyn's trip quickly vanished, and the Oz Film Company soon signed a deal with Paramount to distribute The Patrick Girl of Oz. One early report stated a September 25th release date, but whether the date changed or that report was inaccurate, the eventual actual release date of September 28th was announced soon afterward. In the brief period between acquiring and releasing The Patrick Girl, Paramount apparently held screenings for the press. For reviews, the film began hitting newsstands no later than September 26th. These reviews were generally favorable. Motion Picture News wrote that The Patrick Girl makes an excellent production, and all of the elements cause the picture to be one that will be heartily enjoyed and long talked about. Moving Picture World went even further, calling the plot original and rich, and the film in a class by itself. The reviewer wrote that he would be quick to recommend it to every exhibitor. The mainstream press was similarly effusive. The Los Angeles Times wrote, "It is a fascinating story and will entertain old and young alike. Original plot, rich with funny incidents and quaint characters, it promises to be a unique offering." The Oz Film Manufacturing Company was quick to use this positive press in their advertising. Indeed, this company went into marketing overdrive, both into the motion picture industry and to the public at large. Beyond simply quoting reviews, Baum's team developed a full-fledged marketing and publicity campaign with much of the emphasis on one of the Patrick Girl's main characters, the Woozy. Shortly before the release of the film, Baum and his partners formed the Oz Toy Manufacturing Company, the first toy company on the West Coast. Its initial product was a small wooden Woozy, perhaps the first movie tie-in in the history of cinema. While the extent of distribution and sale of the Woozies is unknown, what is clear is that the toy entered into heavy promotional use. In September, ads for a contest at Hamburger's department store offered the dear little wood Woozies as prizes along with an appearance of a live Woozy to entertain the children. Fred Woodward had played the part of the Woozy in the film, but whether he or another actor made the Woozy's live appearances is a mystery. Whoever the actor, the life-sized Woozy and his miniature toy replica both made an appearance for a Halloween event at Ocean Park in Venice, California, alongside Louis Gottschalk's daughter Gloria and Oz Film Company star Violet McMillan. The Los Angeles Times predicted, "The novel animal promises to become one of the season fads. Little Woozys are becoming the popular fashion with society maids here, bringing them luck," they said. While such high praise reeks of studio PR flack, the wooden toys did indeed make a brief splash on the society set. Articles in the Los Angeles Times, the Los Angeles Evening Herald, and even as far away as the San Jose Mercury Herald described the popularity of the Woozy with debutantes ranging from Seal Beach to Pasadena, where 300 of the toys were given as favors at a dance. Even as late as February 1915, Moving Picture World reported on Violet McMillan's introduction of the Woozy into fashionable society has caused the little animal of fairy tale fame to become quite popular. September 28th, the release of The Patrick Girl of Oz. With positive press and a multifaceted marketing and publicity plan reaching consumers, the Oz Film Manufacturing Company had reason to be optimistic. Indeed, the shot of Vivian Reed as a smiling Ozma of Oz that introduces the film not only welcomed moviegoers, but echoed the producer's enthusiasm. And the pre-release buzz did seem to work some magic. Photography trumpeted a triumphant initial bow to New York filmgoers at the Strand, while Variety reported big houses first a week at the Hippodrome in Buffalo. Back home in Los Angeles, members of the company attended a performance at the Alhambra Theater, where Gottschalk himself conducted a 10-piece orchestra the first week. Alas, however large the first week's audience may have been, word of mouth was not good. The Patrick Girl soon failed at the box office, with adult audiences complained the movie was only a children's film. Between completion of The Patrick Girl of Oz and its eventual release, the Oz Film Manufacturing Company had actually shot and edited 2 other films. The first, The Magic Cloak of Oz, was based upon Baum's Queen Zixi of Ix, now transposed to Land of Oz. The second, His Majesty the Scarecrow, borrowed elements from many of Baum's books, but the story itself was largely original, only later rewritten in book form as The Scarecrow of Oz. An early Oz Film Company ad from the July 4th Moving Picture World listed all three of these films, showing this was always the intended slate. And briefly delayed by the Edison Trust lawsuit, The Magic Cloak began filming in early August and finished photography no later than early September. His Majesty the Scarecrow followed quickly on its heels, shooting until late that same month. The latter was an expensive film for its time. An Oz Company brochure touted the Scarecrow's budget as $20,000. A Moving Picture World even made mention of the construction of the Tin Castle for the film. Effects included the Scarecrow sliding down a pole for an extended underwater sequence, and see rafts floating up and down the wall of water, and the witch zombie picking up and replacing her own separate head. Baum fully expected Paramount to release his subsequent pictures, but after the box office failure of The Patrick Girl, Paramount refused. So did every other distributor. As devastating as this turn of events was, the Oz Film Manufacturing Company had already seen the writing on the wall. On October 5th, His Majesty the Scarecrow premiered at the Los Angeles Athletic Club to a crowd of 3,500 people, with Motion Picture News calling the screening of a private exhibition of second Oz feature. There is no known record of a premiere for the company's actual second film, The Magic Cloak. By mid-month, Oz Film Company trade ads were promoting the Scarecrow over the earlier Magic Cloak, perceiving it the more marketable title due to its inclusion of elements from The Wizard of Oz. One advertisement even went so far as to claim, quite falsely, that the Scarecrow was an adaptation of the famous 1902 musical extravaganza. Reviewers who saw the premiere of His Majesty the Scarecrow were actually quite kind. The October 24th Motion Picture News called it a pleasing result, and its world a wonderful place to sojourn in. The review gave the title as The Scarecrow of Oz, not the only time it appeared as such. As for The Magic Cloak of Oz, after being rejected as a feature, the company re-edited the film into two two-reel shorts entitled The Magic Cloak and The Witch Queen. Even those struggled to find buyers. With the kid stigma sticking to its films, the Oz Film Company entered into production on an adult project adapted from Baum's novel The Last Egyptian, immediately upon completing His Majesty the Scarecrow. About the same time, a company flyer even announced upcoming dramatic productions based on two other adult Baum books, Daughters of Destiny and The Fate of a Crown, although these projects would never see the light of day. The Last Egyptian was completed by the end of October, with the finished film premiering November 2nd to a crowd of 1,000 people, once again at the Los Angeles Athletic Club. Reviews of The Last Egyptian were quite positive. The action received all-around high marks, especially John Farrell McDonald's lead role, none of which could be reused from the previous films, or used for their beauty and realism. The Oz Film Manufacturing Company found a new distributor, signing a deal with the Alliance program to release all future productions. First release under the new arrangement would be The Last Egyptian on December 7th of that year. Alas, while the Alliance did indeed release The Last Egyptian as planned, the Oz Film Company's fate had been sealed, and there would be no future production. This company did shoot a series of shorts collectively known as Violet's Dream, either simultaneously with The Last Egyptian or slightly afterwards, but for some reason these were not distributed under the Alliance deal. By late December 1914 or January 1915, L. Frank Baum had been ousted as company president, replaced by P. Sumner Brown. Although Baum was no longer involved with the company, his son Frank Jocelyn strove on as assistant secretary and general manager. In late January, Frank Jocelyn returned to New York to arrange distribution with Alliance for a retitled His Majesty the Scarecrow, now known as The New Wizard of Oz. Producer and distributor both hoped the new name would capitalize on the success of the 1902 stage musical extravaganza, and indeed the film was billed as such, with Alliance general manager Andrew J. Kobe promising to push it with an excellent selection of paper. Baum himself worked out of the Alliance offices while in New York. One Los Angeles Times article described him as a wide-awake businessman and even one of the Alliance directors. Even reviewers bought into the conceit of The New Wizard of Oz being both a brand new film and an adaptation of the book and stage musical. Not surprisingly, considering such ready acceptance, their reviews were generally positive. Alliance released The New Wizard of Oz in early 1915 as planned. The picture would continue to play for many years, even being sold into Spanish markets. In December 1919, it took on yet another life, forming the basis of Hop Hadley's first and only musical. Hadley coupled the film with a live stage show featuring the movie's Scarecrow, Dr. Frank Moore, and some dancing girls. Unfortunately, despite a strong debut, the movie closed after only a handful of performances. Nevertheless, the film itself lived on. Not long after negotiating the alliance deal, Frank Jolson Baum reorganized the Oz Film Company under the name The Dramatic Producing Company. In April 1915, the new company produced its one and only feature, The Grey Nun of Belgium, directed by Francis Powers and starring Catherine Countess. Numerous reports indicate that Alliance Films intended to distribute the picture up until viewing the first print sometime in May, but the movie never saw release. Dramatic Producing did shoot one additional film while Grey Nun was being edited, a comedic one-reel short entitled Pies and Poetry. The short starred Betty Pierce, but little else is known about it. With no distribution, however, the company was finished. In a bizarre twist of fate, the Dramatic Producing Company was absorbed in 1916 by Golden Pictures, which would later merge with Metro Pictures and Mayer Pictures to form MGM. The studio lot itself would pass through many hands. Sometime after completing The Last Egyptian, the Oz Film Company began renting the lot, first to Tiffany, then the famous Players Lasky for several months, and later to Quality Pictures. Finally, in May of 1915, the newly formed National Film Corporation of America took over the studio. Not long after, the Oz Film Company's shareholders started filing suit against the failed company. Over the years, various attempts were made to revive the Oz Film Company's pictures. In late 1915 and early 1916, Universal finally released the Four Violet's Dream shorts, which had been sold outright to two of its affiliated companies, the Victor Film Company and Rex Motion Picture Company. The following year, Victor Films would combine two of the shorts to create a two-reeler entitled Like Babes in the Woods, also released by Universal. Then in 1919, Lions Royal Enterprises would attempt to re-release the Patrick Girl's The Ragged Girl of Oz in an ill-fated effort to capitalize on actress Mildred Harris's newfound fame as the wife of Charlie Chaplin. Even the much-maligned Magic Cloak of Oz, previously only available in its butchered form of the two separate two-reelers, finally saw light of day in its five-reel entirety. The film was released in August 1917 by none other than the National Film Corporation of America, the eventual owner of the Oz studio lot. Unfortunately, 80% of all silent films are believed to be lost. Sadly, 3 of the 4 Sea-Leak films and much of the Oz Film Manufacturing Company catalog has suffered that very fate. None of the Violet's Dream shorts survive, not even those reconstituted as Like Babes in the Woods. The Museum of Modern Art in New York houses the only known copy of The Last Egyptian. Even that copy is incomplete, with just 3 of the 5 reels remaining. While both the Patrick Girl of Oz and His Majesty the Scarecrow do survive more or less intact, the Magic Cloak of Oz exists only in truncated form of titles and intertitles from a later incarnation. One can always hope that lost reels will one day be unearthed, but for the Magic Cloak there may actually be good reason. In 2010, a minute and a half of footage not part of the circulating print surfaced on YouTube. The description stated, "This very old 35mm silent film came from a Bingoscope toy 35mm projector." The poster uploaded the clip in hopes of identifying the film from which it came. Even the most cursory of viewings immediately pinpoints the clip's provenance as being the Magic Cloak of Oz. The characters and sets match the extant film, while the primary plot element, that of Aunt Rivette magically growing wings, is lifted straight from Queen Zixi of Ix. Could there be more? While such toy prints have an extremely low survival rate themselves, it is possible that more footage from the Magic Cloak was indeed released in such a manner. Whether any remains extant and similarly unidentified, however, is a mystery. There are several striking elements to this clip. Firstly, the poster said the footage came from a 35mm strip. The commonly circulating prints of the Magic Cloak of Oz are 16mm, although the Library of Congress does describe 3 reels of both a 35mm negative and a 35mm positive print in its collection. Secondly, the transfer itself shows us the true full frame, even including sprocket holes in the side. None of the image is lost. Thirdly, existing copies stem from the National Film Corporation release of the film, as evidenced by the main title card. Nevertheless, they are trimmed down in length, most likely recut for regional states' rights distribution. For example, the first print in the American Film Institute's collection was distributed by the American Motion Picture Company in the 1920s for use in schools and churches. The intertitles in the circulating Magic Cloak prints are set in a newspaper-like typeface inside a minimally ornamented frame, nothing like the elaborate intertitles seen in either the Patrick Girl or His Majesty the Scarecrow. But the intertitles in this clip are a perfect match to those of the Patrick Girl, implying the print was struck from the original Lost Oz Film Manufacturing Company version of the film. They provide a window into what might have been. Maybe, just maybe, Alfred Baum's cinematic dream will someday return from across the shifting sands.